Okay, here we go. We're in Unit 4 now, and today's topic to start off Unit 4 is exponents. Before we talk about what the heck an exponent is, let's have a little brain teaser, a little riddle. This one's pretty tough. I bet you can't figure out what numbers come next in this sequence. 2, 4, 8, 16. Oh, there you go. I think you're seeing it. The next one's going to be 32, right? And if you didn't see it before, I think you got it now. We're multiplying by 2 every time. So, in this sequence, we actually started with 2, and then we doubled that, so we had 2 times 2, which is 4. Then we doubled that, which was 8, which is 2 times 2, and then we did times 2, and then 16 was 2 times 2 times 2 times 2, and then you took 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 to get 32, and then you multiplied that by 2 to get 64, and 128 could really be written as 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2, which is kind of an interesting way to write 128, I guess. But there must be a simpler way to write out expressions like this where you're multiplying the same number over and over and over again, right? Why, yes, there is. And the way to do this is with exponents. So, what if you had 7 times 7 times 7 times 7 times 7 times 7? Well, exponents make that much simpler to write. Since there's 6 7s up there, we're going to write it as 7 to the 6th power. Or you could call it 7 to the power of 6. That little 6 that's kind of floating above and to the right of the 7, that's the exponent. Okay, so what is an exponent? An exponent is a little miniature number that kind of floats up there, and what it means is repeated multiplication. It means that there's 6 of those 7s getting times together. Okay, so just to make sure we got this, if you had 3 to the 4th power, that means there's 4 3s that are all getting times together. And if you got a calculator, you can just punch that in. 3 times 3 times 3 times 3, and you get 81. What if you had 10 to the 3rd power, or 10 to the power of 3? Well, that means you've got 3 10s all getting times together, and 10 times 10 times 10 comes out to 1,000. Could you have something to the 1st power or to the power of 1? Sure, that means how many 23s are there? Just 1. That's kind of an easy one. What if you wanted to take a number and write it with an exponent? You just count up how many there are. So if there's 2 10s there, you're going to write 10 to the power of 2, or 10 to the 2nd power, or, oh, there's a code name for the 2nd power. Whenever you have the 2nd power, we call that squared. Okay, this means 10 squared, which you probably already knew. But just in case you didn't, if there's 3 of them, we could say it's 11 to the power of 3. We could say it's 11 to the 3rd power, or when it's the 3rd power, we don't say squared, we say cubed. Just so you know. Alright, I think you got enough to do a couple practice problems. I've still got some more to tell you after this, though. So, number 1, write this in a simpler way using an exponent. Press pause if you need to. Okay, one more. I want you to evaluate this number. What do you get if you have 5 to the 4th power? Okay, a couple more things that we need to review. If you have negative 2 squared, I think we get it by now. That's negative 2 times negative 2. And a negative times a negative is a positive. So that should come out to positive 4, right? Makes sense. If you have negative 2 to the 3rd power, negative 2 cubed, that's negative 2 times negative 2 times negative 2. and a negative times a negative comes out positive, but then you're timesing that by a negative, and that answer comes out to negative 8, because 2 times 2 times 2 is 8. But then if you do negative 2 to the 4th power, and you have negative times a negative times a negative times a negative, the first two negatives cancel out, and the third and the fourth negatives cancel out, and there's no more negatives left, so your answer comes out positive. And you could probably guess that if you had negative 2 to the 5th, it would come out negative, and if you had negative 2 to the 6th, it would come out positive, and it would alternate positive, negative, like that. But what if you have negative 2 squared, but the negative 2 isn't in parentheses? In this case, it comes out negative, and that might seem weird. You might think that both of these are basically the same thing and that they should both come out positive. But I want to point out to you that this first one really means negative 2 times negative 2 because you're squaring the whole thing that's inside the parentheses. You're squaring that whole negative 2, so you're going to do negative 2 times negative 2. On the second one, it's really just 2 times 2 with a negative sign in the front, and 2 times 2 is 4, and with a negative sign in the front, that's negative 4. If that's a little weird, you can just remember this. If the negative is inside the parentheses, it gets multiplied repeatedly and might turn into a positive. If the negative is just kind of hanging out in the front without being inside the parentheses, or if there are no parentheses, then that negative just continues to hang out in the front and it stays there. Alright, just to see if you got it, here's 2 more practice problems. Yep, that's right, we got 4 practice problems on this video. That's okay though, these are easy. First one. Second one. Once you've got those done, you're all set. We'll check our answers tomorrow in class.